also a time of tremendous artistic and cultural innovation, whether the abstract expressionism of Jackson Pollock and the New York School, the novels and poems of The Beats, or the popular films of Marlon Brando and James Dean, rising social tensions, particularly over race, and widespread anxieties about the threat from communism, both at home and abroad. No year captures the contradictions of the decade more powerfully than 1956. This was the year when Dwight David Eisenhower, a moderate, middle-of-the-road Republican who advocated leadership through persuasion and conciliation and patience, was re-elected to the White House in a landslide. It was the year when the Congress passed the National Interstate and Defense Highways Act, authorizing $32 billion for the construction of an interstate highway system that would spur the growth of suburbia and help make possible an array of new consumer pleasures, including the motel and the drive-in movie theater. And it was the year when, with the economy motoring along nicely, the growth rate was 5%, those in professional, managerial, or administrative roles came to outnumber manual workers for the first time in the nation's history, making the United States the world's first post-industrial society. But 1956 was also the year that saw explosive clashes all across the South between African Americans, who were determined to overthrow Jim Crow segregation, and hardline white supremacists pledged to massive resistance, a totemic struggle that would transform Dixie and the nation at large in the course of the following decade. It was the year of Allen Ginsberg's Howl, Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, and the initial stirrings of a generational rebellion that would erupt fully with the 1960s counterculture. And, finally, 1956 was a year of smoldering international tensions. When the Poles, and then the Hungarians, rose up against their Soviet masters, they challenged the United States to make good on all its recent talk about liberating the captive peoples of Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, the Anglo-French attempt to launch a war against Egypt behind Washington's back in an effort to seize back control of the Suez Canal not only strained the Western alliance to breaking point, but dragged the United States to the brink of a thermonuclear confrontation with the Soviet Union. In the event, the dramatic denouement to 1956 would leave the Cold War in Europe in a semi-permanent stalemate. The superpower rivalry would soon shift to Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, while in the Middle East, the United States would move to displace Great Britain as the premier power in this volatile region, with consequences that continue to reverberate in the 21st century. For America, as well as for the world as a whole then, 1956 was quite a year. Prologue. We can say this year more than ever before that the future depends on the courage, the resolution, and the energy of democratic man. New York Times, the 1st of January, 1956. As the last moments of 1955 ebbed away, the 400,000 revelers gathered in New York's Times Square raised their eyes eagerly to the roof of the Times Tower. There, at 20 seconds to midnight, as the ball of electric lights began its 70-foot descent from the top of the flagpole, the crowd roared and sounded air horns in anticipation of the new year. About 8 seconds in, as the noise crescendoed, all 180 lights suddenly went out, and the ball completed its journey in darkness. The 6-foot-high numerical display also failed. A faulty circuit breaker meant that it was not until 12:15 that the lights welcoming in 1956 from all 4 sides of the tower were illuminated. While the celebrations in New York descended into farce, those in Japan were scarred by tragedy. During a Shinto ceremony at the Yahiko Shrine, some 150 miles north of Tokyo, more than 100 people were trampled to death and 75 injured. The disaster occurred during a scramble for the traditional rice balls, or mochi, which were being thrown to the crowd of 30,000.